North Korea has stated it would sell nuclear weapons to Iran, saying, "If you can't build them, I'll give them to you. Don't be afraid of the US. Let's take them on together." Why is North Korea making such statements at this juncture? Because the US has announced it will continue advancing the global nuclear non-proliferation process. It's predictable that the next targets will definitely be North Korea and Pakistan. North Korea has never been one to back down, just look at its temperament. If you try to eliminate its nuclear weapons, it'll first sell them to Iran. It wants Iran to attack US military bases in the Middle East and bomb Israel directly, using widespread conflicts to tie down US forces. That way, US aircraft carriers and bombers won't have the bandwidth to deploy in the Asia-Pacific. That's probably what North Korea is thinking. Therefore, when Robert, a former State Department official, visited South Korea these days, he said he was quite concerned about the missile cooperation plan between North Korea and Iran and the possible nuclear bomb research and development cooperation behind it. How could he not be worried? If Iran is pushed into a corner, it might really dare to drop 2 nuclear bombs in the Middle East. Some people may ask, hasn't Iran already backed down? Maybe you don't understand the religious beliefs of Iranians. Shia believers either die in battle or flee from persecution, they will never surrender. So stop saying that Iran will kneel down, it's simply impossible. This is simply impossible. So next, let's discuss whether the two sides in the Middle East will engage in all-out conflict. First, we have to admit that in the 12-day confrontation between Iran and Israel, Israel has definitely gained the upper hand. Just think, their fighter jets have already established air superiority over Iran, so dropping bombs from there would be almost foolproof. From this, we can also see that Iran's air defense is relatively weak. Don't the Iranians themselves know this? Don't they know where their own weaknesses lie? Of course he knows. In my opinion, Iran's strategic direction is not problematic at all. Just imagine, how much would it cost to build its own air force and navy, and create a complete defense network? If it wants to send fighter jets to attack Israel, it has to fly through several countries. Who would allow it to use their airspace, or who dares to? Therefore, after careful consideration, Iran concluded that it must develop missiles and nuclear weapons. By using missiles that fly high, it can avoid the problem of fighter jets crossing other countries' airspace. Moreover, fighter jets need aerial refueling when returning, which is very troublesome, right? Therefore, this is a last resort for Iran, but a wise one. What Iran originally thought was that as long as it had one nuclear bomb, it could protect its own security, and the US would not dare to attack it. Therefore, since the 1980s, it has been vigorously developing its missile industry, nuclear weapons, and various armories. As of now, Iran already has 12,000 armories, producing all kinds of hypersonic missiles and ballistic missiles in its arsenal. These missiles have performed well, but its nuclear weapons program has remained stalled, and the Air Force has made no progress. As a result, Iran is still using obsolete F-4 fighter jets purchased from the US and MiG-19s from Russia, which have little combat capability. They're basically just for show. During Israel's recent bombing campaign, Iranian fighter jets didn't even bother taking off. However, Iran's missiles have indeed played a crucial role, depleting most of Israel's air defense missiles and forcing Israel to back down. In response, Israel quickly called in US aircraft carriers and bombers for support. This proves that Iran was absolutely right to develop missiles, a strategy also adopted by North Korea, which prioritizes missile programs when funds are tight and only considers Air Force development when resources allow. The priority is to ensure survival first. Now, Iran is just short of nuclear warheads. Therefore, Iran is desperately protecting and transferring its 300 to 400 kilograms of nuclear-enriched uranium, which is said to have reached a purity of 65%. To produce a nuclear bomb, approximately 75 kilograms of such 65% pure uranium would be needed for the warhead, but the result might be too large and cumbersome, with relatively low explosive yield. Typically, nuclear-enriched uranium with 90% purity only requires 13 kilograms to build a nuclear bomb. Thus, Iran must continue enriching. This is why the US and Israel can't wait to bomb Iran's nuclear facilities. However, now North Korea has offered to directly sell nuclear warheads to Iran, which would allow Iran to directly mount them on missiles. The U.S. is definitely worried. Amid all its maneuvers in the Middle East, it never expected North Korea to make such a statement. If true, it would directly render all U.S. efforts in the Middle East futile.